Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Neo Tokyo's official podcast, Interlinked. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlink. I'm joined today by Jeff Outlaw from the YAM team. How's it going today, Jeff?
Very good, Nick. Very good.
Glad to hear it. So before we get things rolling, would love a little self-introduction so that the audience can get to know who you are, just in case they missed our AMA just a couple weeks ago.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Jeff Outlaw. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at YAM. So CXO. It's not a position you find every place, but we're using it. So my background, I've been making video games since 2000. I actually started my video game career as an artist and an animator and world builder, in the art pipeline. Did that for some console games. I started off on the GameCube and PlayStation 2. Worked my way into a management position, a producer role, and that was the bulk of my career in gaming. I worked in some of I worked for EA, and I worked at Oculus for a while. I did 8 years making tablet games and did a whole bunch of VR titles. So quite a lot of gaming publishing in my background. Got into Web3 gaming in about 2019. I actually got into cryptos in about 2017, and then Web3 gaming in about 2019. And I've been at a couple of different studios, did some metaverse projects, did some other smaller games in Web3, but found myself at YAM in the beginning of 2024, so a little more than a year and a half now. It was an opportunity that was given to me, and I said, well, geez, this is such a great technology. It's going to do so much for the gaming industry. There are parts of the gaming industry that I think are really needing a boost, and that's how I got involved. And I guess we can get into like what it is that we do. But that's kind of my background: an artist, animator, and game maker.
Love it. Yeah, we had I think talked on the AMA around the GameCube and all the
Oh,
nostalgia
that's
I
right.
have, as that was my OG console. I cut my teeth on Viva Pinata. I think I have all the
Yeah.
achievements for that game, as my nana and papa were like, "I'll get you a GameCube, but it's got to be something rated E," because I was only, whatever age at the time, maybe 12. But especially having three siblings, we were like sort of perfect for the GameCube, and between like Kirby Air Ride, Mario Kart Double Dash. We had a lot of fun playing on that.
Donkey Congo. Did you get to play the Congos?
For one reason or another, we didn't spend as much time in like the Donkey Kong ecosystem.
Okay.
Obviously now it's on the forefront of everybody's mind with the Switch 2 coming out swinging
Yep.
with that brand new Donkey Kong game, which I've been hearing pretty much nothing but glowing reviews coming from that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Nintendo knows how to put it together. My big title was a direct. We worked directly with Nintendo, and those guys are all dedicated to making great stuff. I learned so much from just having their team sit in our office and talk to us about their process and things we didn't even think to know. They made very clear to us. So, and not surprising that Donkey Kong is gonna kill it.
Yeah, my brother actually won't pick it up because of the world destruction aspect. He's like one of those sort of like OCD gamers who needs to clear everything. And he's
Sure.
like, I'm gonna end up tearing this entire planet down to its core. So he's like, I gotta step away a little bit. But we didn't get as much time to dive, into your history in the AMA since we had multiple guests on. So I'd love to get a little bit of background about what got you back into crypto, or what got you into crypto back in 2017.
Yeah, so I actually had a real interest in economics. Just it's kind of crazy. Like, why did anyone study economics? But it wasn't like a college study or anything like that. It's just I was always very curious about what the term inflation meant and why. And I never seemed to have money. I was always kind of going from paycheck to paycheck for much of my 30s. When I it was someone once told me that you're not really going to understand how the world works until you understand how banks work. So from there, I was like, well, I think I want to understand how banks work because this is going to be vital information. So I did a study. When I say a study, I mean I watched a lot of YouTube videos back when YouTube was still allowed you to do just about everything on YouTube. And studying the banking system, there's a video series called "The Hidden Secrets of Money," Mike Maloney's series. It's just a tremendous series. It's like, and actually he gets into it's like 10, 12 episodes long, but about episode 8, he gets into Hedera hash graph and he gets into blockchain stuff. And so that was probably my introduction to it. because the first time I heard about Bitcoin was probably 2010. One of the guys I was working with was working on wasn't Bitcoin. It might have been early Doge stuff, maybe even. But I was like, listen, get the fake internet money away from me. I didn't buy into it. But a couple of people that I listened to during the education of the economic system were starting to talk more and more about it. That one video I mentioned than others. So I started diving into it and read the white paper, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why Bitcoin is actually money and not currency because of the limited supply, because it takes energy to mine it and to make it to put it on the blockchain takes energy. It's computing energy, but it's still, that does translate into actual energy costs. So it's a way to make it a real measurement of a real a resource, which is this, in that case, energy. So once I come to understand that, then I started to buy into the whole narrative of why. Now, not every blockchain is this, right? But those chains that are proof of work especially make a lot of sense when you understand how money is supposed to work. How it's supposed to be a true measurement that doesn't change over time. So marry that to the concept of inflation, which again, when I grew up in the 70s, and you'd hear the word inflation all the time from the Carter era, but you didn't understand what it meant. All you knew was that your money is getting less and less valuable over time. And there's a great graph. If you go to, I'm going to keep on showing websites to you, but if you go to, I think it's WTF happened in 1971. I think that's the name of the website, something like that. What the F happened in 1971. It has a chart of if you keep gold at a standard rate and you watch every other currency falls down to almost nothing if you make the baseline gold, which again is the reason gold being a form of money is because it takes time and energy to mine it out of the ground, to mint it, to all that energy is stored up in each single ounce of gold, same as a Bitcoin. Anyways, it's a very interesting graph. And then you realize that, holy cow, the regular currencies, national currencies they're all falling apart. Anyways, that's a long answer to get to. That's kind of why I got into blockchain and Bitcoins, because I started to understand what money was supposed to be and how currencies aren't that thing.
Yeah, if there's like a matrix pill, I feel like inflation starts it for a lot of people. It certainly started it for me too. I actually love nerding out on economics and, went down sort of the Austrian rabbit holes and some of
Yeah.
the traditional economics because I had a business background in school. And so for both undergrad and grad, we got a lot of traditional economics education, which always when you're sitting there and you're looking at the graphs between supply and demand and everyone acting, the basis of economics is that everyone's making logical decisions. And then you go out into the real world and you're like, this isn't
Oh.
logical. Like, why would they only be able to make logical decisions about money when everything else is, so bootstrapped to emotion? So 2017, you get interested in Bitcoin. I guess pick up the story from there as far as you hung around Bitcoin for a while. Obviously, you had the gaming background. So when did you start to play around a little bit more in the fake internet money, so to speak?
So at this point, I picked up Bitcoin early on, picked up some Ethereum, and then I was working for a studio doing traditional games. We had a really great game idea that was we were struggling to find funding for it. So while we were still looking to find funding, a couple studios came to us with their Web3 project that were floundering, and they said, "Well, you guys are traditional game makers. We have this, we have already started building this game in Web3. We need help finishing it." So we took it over, and at the time in that studio, it was like me and one other guy who understood blockchain at all, Bitcoin at all. Everybody else in the studio was either keep that away from me, or I guess, well, they kind of held their nose to finish that game. But the other guy and I, we were kind of gung ho because we could see where this was going. Eventually, unfortunately, that studio kind of wound down. So we started looking around for a new place to go, and I had the opportunity to go back to VR, where I had a lot of, I published like a dozen games in VR. Could have gone back there or gone into an opportunity to go to a Web3 metaverse company. When I looked at those two together, I love VR and I still have my Quest and everything, but there is at some point, there's a cap on how many people are going to get into VR because motion sickness, strapping something to your head, getting the extra equipment, and not everyone's going to do that, right? Um, but I saw Web3 again. I was already buying into the narrative of the token stuff. I saw that there's a real way to make games and make the value that you put into a game as a player translated into real world. You can get back out again after you've played a game for 5 years. You've built up all these items that you've earned in the game now have value because you spent 5 years getting them all. But if you're kind of done with the game, want to move on to the next one, being able to take those games out and extract that value that you put into the game, I thought was a very good um, a very good narrative. So I bought into it. So took the game, the metaverse game project. That project is still going. I kind of went away from them as I went over to where I am now. But the whole idea of the metaverse, I still think has got a lot to offer. It needs still some supporting infrastructure. One of the things that we do with what we do is that kind of supportive infrastructure that's going to need to be there for the whole full metaverse adoption. Um, but that's kind of where I went after. That's how I walked into the Web3 gaming. It was really a conscious choice to go that direction.
And a quick tangent just on gaming in general. You have a free afternoon, you got some time to game. What are you playing right now?
Oh man, I do a lot more on my phone than I used to do because I've got kids and everything. So time is, yeah, I gotta go I got a game where my platform is. But I still like if you've played a Snow Runner, it's a driving sim in the snow and in the mud. It's a beautiful looking. It's built on Unreal, so it's just beautiful looking. And it's a slow paced thing. I've gone away from the fast twitch, fast reaction games because my son's 14 and he's just much better at it than me. So I'm tired of getting owned by him. So I've gone to the slower games that are, but still graphically rich ones. I still enjoy all those things. So SnowRunner is one I'm playing a lot. I also look for games that have a really uh quirky gameplay. There's I'm gonna forget the name of it now. Um, I'm gonna forget the name. Yeah, come back to me. I'll get the name for it. But it's one where you take a strand and you gotta it's problem solving, but in a 3D world. I like all those kind of spatial relation games that are problem solving that are not, again, not quite quick reaction, but it forces you to think, but still have like a high graphic quality.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a ton out there to choose from now. I tend to
Yeah,
get either I'll still play some fast-paced stuff. Right now, the Battlefield 6 open beta is on, and so I
yeah,
still got enough sort of like rosters of buddies who love those games that we can fill out some squads and have a good time. But also the real-time strategy games are ones that I always come back to, like the Total Wars. Originally cut my teeth on like Age of Empires, but those super high fidelity graphics. And sometimes it can get a little sweaty if you got to be managing a lot of things at once, but it's nice to just sit back there and be the general. And, I get to nerd out on history a bit too, which is either
oh yeah.
history or fantasy, which are both fun.
I did a lot of Civilization just for that reason, to kind of like sit back and kind of be the god of the world kind of a viewpoint. Yep, yep.
Totally. Oops, sorry about that.
So,
Sorry to you, LeBoomington, for the extra editing. He's our rock star editor. Always very grateful for you, Boom. I know you're watching this in the
I forget
future.
that this gets edited, so I could actually go and pull up the my Steam account and find out what the hell the name of that game is, couldn't I?
Yeah, you definitely can. And you can always like ping us back in and we can add it to the description if
That's
you
right.
end up looking for it after.
Yeah.
But taking a little bit of another tangent around like VR, having worked so long with like sort of like Oculus and like developing these games, I think like at this point the trajectory of VR is a little bit more clear. I think where my interest is now more is AR. So I'd love to see, maybe from your experience where you think like sort of the augmented reality gaming space is going.
Yeah, so I did an AR project as well, and it's with Lego actually. It was fun to do. I think that you're going to have a better adoption with it because again, it lessens greatly the motion sickness issue, right? There's just some people who never gonna equate. They're never gonna get okay with VR, but AR they'll be okay with. I don't really study the field a great deal to know what else is being released right now, but if I were going to pick one, I would say that's the one that's going to get more adoption. There's also I think the form for wearing the glasses on your face again just makes it a little bit easier for people to absorb. So I'm excited to see what comes out of AR stuff. But again, my the whole thesis of what we're building where I am now is that people are going to game with the thing that they have easiest access to, right? Easiest access to right now is your phone and your computer screen. So all the um all the talk about even AR VR because it forces you to buy a piece of equipment that you don't have to have. Everyone kind of has to have a phone, and generally people have to have at least a laptop, right? At least a screen, and with a web browser and the internet. So whatever you're going to do for entertainment, the mass adoption is always going to be the easiest form. Not everyone's going to need to have AR glasses or VR headsets, so it's going to be the niche audience still.
Yeah, no doubt. let's get into it because I'd love. I've already gotten a demo. We've already talked about it on the AMA. So excited to share with the podcast audience what you guys are building at Yum.
Yeah. So what we are is again a decentralized cloud gaming network. Um, the important part there is the decentralized. So cloud gaming, you can read all kinds of reports. I get a Google alerts every time an article is dropped about cloud gaming, so I can keep up to date with it. And every big gaming developer already knows now that cloud gaming is where everyone's going to go because it drops all the barriers. It lets anybody with any kind of equipment play the game that they want to make, right? Nintendo's going after it pretty big, and we're actually close to working with some parts of them. Xbox, Microsoft's doing it, Sony's doing it, everyone's doing it. Um, the problem is they're all struggling because they're all going with the central server model. They're all trying to buy space on these big central servers that are being built all around the world. Though, and the other alert that I get, the Google alert I get is central servers or database construction, because you read all these stories about how the building these massive complexes, it's hugely disruptive to the environment in the local area. It's pulling water resources away from local residents. All of a sudden, the farmers can't water their field because the cooling requirements of these big buildings is just pulling in the lake water, right? Those kinds of stories are happening all the time. And then you couple with that all the need for AI to have these central servers, because AI actually does actually work really well inside of a central server architecture. You kind of need everything centralized for AI. But when you're trying to do cloud gaming and buying resources, buying compute off the central servers, you're getting priced out of the market by the AI stuff. So what we knew years ago when we started building what we're building now is that when you decentralize, you save a whole bunch of costs and you actually help the game get out to the end user a lot faster because you can get very local with your broadcast. So it became a matter of how do you build that technology? How do you build that architecture? So what we do is our cloud is powered by people's gaming rigs at home. So if you have a gaming rig at home and you want to earn passive income with it, you purchase our hardware and plug it in, and then we run your computer from our hard drive and pay you for the amount of games get streamed through your computer. So when you go to bed at night or you go off to school, you go off to work, you put your machine online. It's kind of like having an Uber, but you don't have to do the driving. You just let the computer do the driving for you, and then you come back and take over it again when you get home. Or we've had a lot of people who are just going out and buying machines and having a second machine in their home just to earn money because the return on this is pretty good. And I talk about that for a little bit too. But that's a basic system. People are earning passive income by powering our network, letting us buy their computer time when they're not using it, and then we stream games through any website, through any URL to the end user. So people who are playing, they just have a regular laptop or even on their phone, and they can access these AAA quality, high-powered games just by going to a website that the game distributor or the publisher puts up. Um,
Now, is it one to one or multiple to one as far as like if I've got a 5090 sitting here, like how many different instances of like games
yeah,
can be tapping into that 5090?
this is actually one of the upsides of our system too. So no, it's not one to one. Depending on your graphics card, you host more and more streams. We pay you per stream that you host. So if you've got a 2060, you can do about 2 streams, depending on how fast your internet your upload speed is in your service provider. You got a 5090, it'll go somewhere between 8 and 12 streams at the same time, right? So you basically can 6x your return. What that is good for us, anyways, is it incentivizes people to upgrade their machine. And by upgrading your machine at home, not only do you get a better gaming rig, but our network gets more robust, right? So it helps us without us having to actually spend any more money because you spent the money. But then you probably earn that money because you've been hosting the 2 or 4 streams on your smaller graphics card. So this, again, I go back to my son who is very anxious to get on the network as well because he wants to buy himself a better rig. So he is a smaller rig now. He runs that for a couple of months. He's earned the money to buy his upgrade, and I don't have to pay I don't have to pay a dime. It's kind of nice.
Definitely nice.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, and I think we talked about this on the AMA, but like for instance, with all the busyness in like Web3 and working, like I only have limited amounts of time to like play, maybe like have a cyberpunk weekend, for
Right.
instance. And I'm like, okay, I want to be able to just harness the power of like a 5090 to run max spec, sort of like cyberpunk. Is there the ability to like, is one stream a fixed amount of like resources, or would it be the ability to like take up the entire 5090's like resources if like that was the demand that I wanted.
Yeah. So initially, we're capping it all to make sure that it's equally distributed among people who are playing. So initially, no. I think you're not saying, "Hey, hook me up with a 5090." You're just saying, "Hey, I want to play the game," and then our orchestrator finds someone who's a machine that's close to you that's got the best speed that can hook you up, right? So it's not yet to the point where you can say, I want to be able to max out," but our cap is still pretty high, right? Because we know that low latency and good graphics quality is kind of the draw that we have compared to, well, that and then the open access to anything, right? Because some of the central server models, the ones like NVIDIA GeForce Now, right? They have issues with people trying to log in on a Friday night or a Saturday night when there's a surge in people wanting to use because they can't scale. They're not going to buy a whole bunch of extra machines for Tuesday that have to run on Tuesday afternoon because no one's playing. Just to handle the demand on Friday, they've gone the other direction and just said, well, you just have to wait in a queue. For us, because we instantly scale up, scale down. We only pay the node providers for the time that we use their machine. Our scaling is instant and it's fast and it's much more scalable. But we don't say like you don't get to say I want on 5090 I want to max out because then we may be hobbling. Well, first we might not be able to find one near you, and secondly we might hobble the entire network. So in the offset at the beginning, everyone's going to be capped at at a 60 frames per second, but it's still robust 60 frames per second.
Yeah, for sure. And that's still, very comparable with like consoles, which is like sort of the next most affordable to graphics ratio, depending on, I know PlayStation's newest PS5 Pro might be breaking that as far as its affordability niche, but they've got the game, so they run that. No, that's a very interesting model. Let's get into the economics a little bit of like what are some of these people earning per stream over time so that people can kind of get the wheels turning of like, okay, well, if I'm making X, that's, however many days to get to a 5090.
Yeah, fortunately, we put up a calculator on our website. People can go to the website and kind of put in their specs in because there's more than one factor. There's a couple of different factors. It's the graphics card that you have. It's your upload speed from the location you're at. It's the saturation in your area. Basically, if there are 20 people in your area that are running nodes, you'll get less of the share than if there's only if you're the only person running a node in your area. And then also the amount of gamers in your area, right? There's a lot of interest in the games in your area. So a lot of factors play into it. It's not a precise thing, but on general, in the average, what we say is when we're at saturation, and for us, saturation means that 60% of our network is being used at all times, just 60%. We're talking about $70 per stream. So if you've got a 2060, you're running two streams, it's this is per month, about $140 a month. At saturation. If you're running a machine that can handle more, it's times X that. But I would encourage anyone who's interested, go to our website, yom.net, which I'm going to show. Go ahead. But there's a calculator there because we want that question it's a very valid question. And again, there's more factors than I left off the one other factor, and that's your reliability score. So one of the ways that we help the network stay robust is every person who's operating a node has a running score, their reliability, basically. It's a reputation score. So things like you lose power and you drop somebody out of a game in the middle of a game, you drop in your reputation score, we send you less work. You start saving YAM tokens in your wallet that's holding on to your node license, well, we get you more reputation points. So we send you more work, right? So these kinds of things have to factor into the policing of the network just through your reputation. And that factors into, again, how much work you get, which factors into how much you can earn.
So very similar to like the Uber model. Like if you're late to pick people up, I mean, I'll call,
Yes.
dropping someone in the middle of the gaming session, the equivalent of being rude. All of that sort of affects your score and how much you're prioritized.
Yeah, yeah. It's like having the dog in the car that, and I'm going to say I'm allergic to dogs. I'm not, but if I were, right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, for
Very much
sure.
like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So I wonder, like, have you guys been mapping out on like sort of the back end, like where you guys are gaining traction? Because I'd imagine like someplace like New York City, you've got a shit ton of gamers. Latency is going to be relatively low, assuming people are having good connections, because you might be supporting people in your building, as
Right.
opposed to like, rural Kansas, where maybe everyone's spread out by, 100 miles, like in every direction. So does
Yeah.
that come into like sort of like play?
It does. We've had our alpha test network up and running for about, gosh, almost 6 months now. We learned quite a bit about things like how many hops you have between. It's not just the distance, because I might only be 300 miles away from you, which we have our range right now set to like 3,000 kilometers, which I'm not going to do the math to miles, but 300 miles is well within that. But if I have to hop through two different switcher stations before I get to you, that's going to be slower than if there's only one switcher station between the two of us, right? So those kind of things play into it. We know that being close to a hub is important for us. So we're, working with node providers. There's a separate way an additional way to boost our network, and that's to find small former mining companies who are close by the switcher stations, which they generally are anyways, because they help them to mine faster, and using those to back up our individual at-home nodes. So we're finding out quite a bit about what makes up for really good service. Areas that we're targeting now, we're already strong in Western Europe. We've got a lot of people. The company is formed in the Netherlands, so there's a lot of the fan base is already kind of in Amsterdam, and a lot of our testers are out of that area. So all of Western Europe is pretty well, covered already in our test network. Probably New York, probably Japan, right? Southeast Asia. We're getting close. We're working with a partner of one of the bigger consoles. I guess I probably don't want to go too far. I probably already let slip. Anyways, we're working with them to do a proof of concept to show exactly what it looks like when it's in Japan. Japan, fortunately, some of these places like Japan and Singapore, they've got high speed internet already. Like in the US, there's many places where we're still on cable, we're not on fiber yet. And these other parts of the world, they jumped right to fiber, which is great for us, right? So we can get a lot of quick usage. And then those places in Southeast Asia that are already massive gamers. So there's a lot of synergy in working with in locations like that.
Now a word from our sponsors.
What's up, crypto gamers? Shout out to our sponsor, Myria. Myria is revolutionizing Ethereum-based gaming with its powerful L2 scaling solution. Think zero gas fees, instant transactions, free NFT minting, and more. Myria offers a suite of tools that are tailor-built for game development, including game-specific SDKs, a spec'd-out marketplace, Web3 spiked leaderboards, new AI super tools, and more. All this fueled by a fleet of player-run nodes that are a breeze to operate and pump out daily rewards for supporting the ecosystem. Plus, check out Meta Rush, the Battle Royale obstacle runner by Myria Studios, dropping very, very soon.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
And let's dive into like the token model for a second. So you're getting paid in YAM tokens.
Yeah.
So how are you guys sort of like handling the tokenomics? Because everything else like sort of stable. If you have an emission token that's just constantly being generated and then given out as a reward, obviously that's going to inflate away the price to bring our whole full back circle to inflation. So how are you guys like thinking about that? Is that a problem in this case?
Yeah,
And like how are you guys looking at it?
I'm glad we started talking about the inflation stuff at the very beginning, because when I first got introduced to YAM, their former CTO, who's now our CEO, Yort, he and I had a conversation that had nothing to do with games or technology. We just talked about economics, and the two of us just geeked out because he had drawn up an economic plan. And because I was skeptical of many different, I knew how money was supposed to work. I was skeptical of lots of things. But as he walked me through what he had designed, I was like, damn, this is exactly how it's supposed to work, right? So what we have is we have a cap supply of tokens, and we only ever make so many. So it's not a constant feed. And I would say that the players don't have to know any of this stuff. Players can be Web2, they don't have to. Players don't have to get involved in the Web2 stuff at all, the Web3 stuff at all. It's just for the node operators, right? So when a studio wants to put their project on our network, they purchase network time in fiat. We buy our token off the market, and then we pay the rewards to the people who are operating the nodes. But like when we make the payout, we also burn a small portion. We burn 5% of the payout, so that we're constantly diminishing the supply of the tokens, right? So two ways. We're purchasing it off the market ourselves. As we get more and more traffic, we're purchasing more and more. As the network's being used more and more, and we add more games, we're burning more and more, right? So over time, we have less in circulation, and we're having to buy it ourselves to pay for for the network time, because we've got more traffic being bought in. And then that idea of you get more work by holding onto the tokens into the wallet where you have the license means that it's staking without really staking. We're not really a big fan of just staking for no purpose, but staking in order to build your reputation and to get more work makes sense to us, right? That has a value for it. So again, less tokens are circulating because more are being held by the people who are operating the nodes. So that's a short version of how our tokenomics work. It's you paid for the amount of hours that you stream, but you're also watching the whole supply dwindle over time.
And so the buybacks are funded by like a small portion of the fee that you guys take, I imagine,
No,
from
the
in
buybacks
between.
is it's just direct when the game studio purchases time on the network. We say to them is,
Oh,
if you're purchasing time in advance, you're purchasing 5,000 game hours. So we have we at 5 cents a session, or you're purchasing this many sessions is actually how we do it. So, and we charge them per session. So as soon as they bought the session time, we convert that into YAM to hold aside for paying of the node operators. And then as they burn through the amount of sessions that they've pre-purchased, then we say, okay, well, you're coming close to your cap. Do you want to purchase some more? And they say yes or no. Right? And then again, but they're purchasing in fiat because again, a lot of our drive is to reach to the Web 2 gaming system ecosystem as much as the Web 3, and we want to burden them into figuring out. No, we're not going to make them go out and buy YAM tokens themselves. We
for
can do it.
sure.
We can pretty much automate it from our side.
So for the like the node holder and the gamer, that's sort of a peer-to-peer economy, and then they get some token emissions in exchange for essentially. We'll get into the gamer side of the economics, but I'm assuming they pay in fiat that buys YAM tokens, and then YAM tokens go to the node supplier.
Well, the gamer the gamer could be a free to play game, so they might not be paying anything. Again, a lot of the studios that we're talking to are saying this is a great model for opening up the funnel. I don't know how far you go back pretty far, right? So it used to be PC or Gamer magazine would come with a CD that you put into your computer and load up like samples of games that you might want to purchase when they're released in say 3 months. So you get a chance to try the game out before the game was released. So a lot of the publishers we're talking to are like, that model worked really, really good. It's hard to do now because you're forcing someone to download and install a sample of the game, and not many people go that step. Instead, what they do is they put a sample of the game up on a website, and then they send the website link around to people. And me as a player who wants to sample this game, I don't have to install anything. I don't have to update any drivers. I just jump in and play the sample. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. It
Hmm.
shoots me over to the Steam site, right? So there could be no money. The only person who's paying for that is the marketing budget for the game itself. Publishers are paying that. So the player might not pay anything at all. For those games that are like Web3 enabled, or the games that are freemium, right? You play for free, but you want to charge. Our SDK allows you to bring up either a Stripe wallet or a Phantom wallet or a MetaMask wallet. And through your web browser, again, we're not getting in the middle of these transactions. They still all happen on chain, and not on our chain, but on the native chain. And so we've worked with a couple of different chains already. Peak is one of them. Avalanche we're talking to, Diamante. But basically, if they've got a wallet and they want the games that are built on their chain to transact on their token, okay, well, we'll just add your wallet activation inside of our SDK so that you can go ahead and the game can call up the wallet and do the transactions through whatever wallet they want to enable.
Got it. So really the end customer is the games who are purchasing these game
Right,
hours.
right,
So
right.
take me through like what that journey has been like as far as like, pitching it to these games, getting these games onboarded, like sort of like growth, like how is that being received? Would love to like get some insights there.
Yeah, it's funny because so again, I know a lot of people in the gaming industry and had a lot of conversations, and there's all kinds of this sounds, oh, we're joined by Andy.
Nice. What's up, Andy?
Hey
Hey,
guys,
Andy.
how are we doing?
Pretty
Good.
good.
Welcome.
You came in at a good time, Andy. Nick's just asking about how's the approach been to studios. But Nick, do you want to? I don't know if you wanted to. We're editing this afterwards, so.
Studios?
But,
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry
but
about this, guys. I saw it in my diary and thought, well, that's not for me. And then just saw the message from Jeff. Anyway,
yeah,
okay,
it's
yeah.
okay.
So
Well, you want to do a quick introduction, Andy, to the because Nick, does that work for you? We'll have Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, LeBoomington, for your editing wizardry in the background. Yeah, Andy, welcome to the podcast. Would love a little quick introduction for yourself.
okay, great. Yeah, so my name's Andy Pringle. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for YOM, and I've known Jeff for quite a while. I'm sure you've heard the story about how when we joined YOM and what a kind of roller coaster it's been. Prior to that, very different background to Jeff. So my background is sales, marketing, entrepreneurship. So basically building businesses across multiple spaces. But this is the first within the tech space. So it's been a very interesting time so far.
It's fun. It's fun to watch Andy ask a question that if you've been in technology for a while, you're like, hey, Andy, everyone knows this, but it's powerful to have somebody who's asking those questions, because if he's asking those questions, other people are going to ask those questions, who are getting acquainted with it for the first time, and we should be able to answer those.
Definitely. And like, I'm a big Lex Friedman's really sort of changed my thought on this. Like, I always, especially in school, you get into this sort of moment where you're like, okay, my question is my representation to this teacher or, this business meeting that I understand. And so I think now people have become almost adverse to asking very simple questions. But
Right.
one of the most profound moments on a podcast is he had Lex Friedman had Ray Dalio onto his podcast, and first question was, "What is money?"
Ooh.
And that's such an unbelievable opportunity to get that answer from, in this case, like Ray Dalio, to such a simple question. I think there's a big, like, sort of like need or a big urge to overcomplicate, where sometimes, simple questions can be the most impactful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
That's good. So you were asking, or I think you were just asking about the gaming experiences that we've had so far. Was that the kind of angle that you were going down?
So I think your ears might have been burning before you hopped on, because we were talking about like essentially the sales cycle to the
Yes.
games themselves. What's their reaction been? What's sort of the pitch been? How like
Yeah.
eager have they been to adopt? How are you guys looking to scale? So you came in at a perfect time.
Wonderful. That's good. Well, it's been a really interesting one from my perspective. So we've spoke to lots of games. We've spoke to a lot of kind of indie games, and we started out really with the model of going for the indie games, the smaller organizations, and the studios as opposed to the publishers. And then we ended up going because again we've moved from a model of building immersive experiences to building or running games, and then from running games to thinking, okay, well, what are games really trying to do? And almost all games are trying to get user acquisition. And there's so many problems with games nowadays where I forget what the stats are, but it's something like I think it's like the average game length is like 7 years that someone plays it for. The likelihood of you moving to another game is really difficult. So game studios, a lot of their problems is they're actually trying to get new people in, but the barriers to entry of them getting people in is just really, really difficult. So what we actually found through conversations with publishers is that the best way to actually get people into your game is to give them a demo. Now, again, that has its own barriers to entry, and the barriers to entry predominantly are things like no one wants to download it. I think I was looking at some stats earlier, and it's like 2% of the people who actually download a game then actually bother playing it, which is
Mm.
insane when you think about it. So these gaming companies are spending all this money on advertising. They can't track lifetime value anymore because GDPR in the UK and privacy across the rest of the world has stopped them tracking this stuff through. So they put adverts out. They can't get people to come onto their demos. Then they can't get people onto the games. Now, what we discovered, and we're in Brighton talking to some AAA game companies. And if I'm honest with you, I was expecting them to sort of come along and say, yeah, don't worry, come back to us in 3 years when you've done some interesting stuff. And then we started talking to them about the ad play model, and then taking the ad play, that instant play, so we can all share it with each other. We can do mini games, in the same way when you had a PC magazine, you would have a CD on the front. You take the CD off, you put it in your PC, you play it, and then you'd never go to the shop and buy the game, but that would be the ideal. Whereas what we've got now is people are actually, they play the quick game. The call to action is, go to the wish list at Steam or go to the game and actually buy it. And the conversions on ad play is 3x to 16x as an average conversion, as opposed to non-interactive models. And I think, and I could be wrong with this, GeForce Now can do it, but you have to pay a subscription to actually get onto GeForce Now. So if you take away that barrier there, we are, I think, the only organization that can actually do that ad play streaming at a reasonable price and basically bring games over. So, the funny phrase was, and I can't tell you who it is because we're just in the finals of signing with them, but one of the really big publishers, the guy was like, hold on, so you can do this? And we were like, yeah. And he goes, you can do this? Yeah. And you could do this price. And we went, yeah. And he went, let's do it. And that was like, I was like, what? And it was almost a bit like the guy went from kind of this, you know, I went from this idea of like, we're going to get these indie gamers, they're going to have 5 people playing the game, blah, blah, blah. You know, this guy, and again, I can't tell you who it is, but, you know, me and John sat there, and John's background is EDOS. And this is where he knew the guy from. He's known the guy like 20 odd years. He sat with the guy and said, listen, how do you get people to come to the advert? You know, how do you do this? And he said, we just do a video and we get 5 million views of the video. What we need is to get them over to the game. And it was like light bulb, you know? And I think that kind of model will enable us to bring people over to the first stage, which then the instant play picks up. And then, you know, that. So in answer to your, that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, isn't it? But in answer, it's been really good, to the point where I'm looking at our projections going 2028. We could potentially do our projections in 2026 if we can scale as we expect to, basically.
And we're all for the long form answers. That's the advantage of having a little bit more of a long form pod. So no sweat.
Yeah.
Always appreciate diving into the details. So and I'm actually totally sold on sort of the demo idea, because where I miss the sort of demo inside of the PC Magazine era. So I came in after that. But where I came in was like after the GameCube was the 360 era when I was a teenager. And that's when they made demos so easy, because you didn't have to worry about drivers. You didn't have to worry about updates outside of like, I mean, at that point it was quarterly at the very, like at the most for like the 360, and you could just download demos. One of the things that I'm really excited about this model is it wasn't easy to send that demo to your friend. You'd have to be like, okay, go into the Xbox Live Store, type in this exactly, the search algorithm, certainly was no Google, so you'd have to be precise. But from my understanding, if I went in and tried, game X and I liked it, I could just send the link to my buddy or drop it in the group chat with all my gaming friends. And that gives it a whole different, virality. You could even share it on social media, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only that, we have it running inside of Telegram already too. So it could just be that you send the Telegram, so you're playing inside of a Telegram link or channel with your friend. So yes, yeah, that is the extra added benefit.
I was going to say, just on the Telegram piece, one of the things I really love is, and this is a bit about, someone sends me a game link. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a game link. That's great. Someone sends a game link inside Telegram. Well, our leaderboard system automatically integrates inside that Telegram channel exclusively. So if we're in a Telegram channel together, chuck it in, we all play, we get best score. If I send it to my mates in a different Telegram channel, then they play, then we get a different leaderboard. So it's kind of really cool. You can end up sort of competing with your friends inside little individual groups, as opposed to, these global leaderboards where you have thousands of people. It's like, I lost to, I don't know, John Smith in, I don't know, Canada. Who cares? Yeah. I lost to Jeff. That's important. Yeah. And we come back and we go again, you know?
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. I mean, any way that you can sort of like localize the experience to friend groups, I think gives it a whole different level of stickiness. Since it sounds like the game publishers, you guys have really put your finger on the pulse of like a value add and a product fit. So that part seems to be coming together. Has been getting node operators been more challenging than games, or is it the other way around?
No, I wouldn't say it's more challenging. I think we really only just gotten started in the outreach, because the manufacturing process is still in play. So we're getting the actual hardware manufactured. Get the testers, that was really kind of easy. We went out and just said, hey, we're trying this out. Turns out there's a lot of people who have a second machine. They've upgraded their gaming rig, and they've got a second machine just kind of sitting in the closet, not doing anything. And a lot of people asked, could they put that up 24/7? And we said, absolutely, please do. So, finding testers has been pretty easy. And if that's any indication of how these will sell, I expect that we'll do really well, but we haven't really done a big marketing push yet to get those sold. That's actually happening next. As a matter of fact, if people will listen to this, when they go to the site to check out the calculator, there's also a place to sign up for our newsletter and alpha program, so they'll get notified when when the sales actually start. Andy, do you want to add anything to that? Andy, did you want to add anything to that?
Sorry. Yeah. The only thing I was going to say is there's one of your OGs, by the way, Nick, who who is coming on as one of our lead testers. You probably know who it is. I better not say his name just in case. But we pulled a few strings so that he gets onboarded ASAP. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of communication going with NT on how it's all going and all that stuff.
Oh, I love it. You'll have to spill the beans when we wrap up the pod. You've sparked my curiosity. Now, you had mentioned like sort of the manufacturing, and obviously that takes time. Walk me through why like a hardware-based model was the right move as opposed to like doing it based on like software to sort of lower that friction.
Yeah, another good question. So there's a couple of things in play, right? First of all, it's security of your home system. We didn't want to have you install a software onto your home system and then feel like, okay, well, now Yom has access to my hard drive and all that stuff, right? To firewall your system away from our system, that's one big reason for the external hardware, right? Secondly, the game developers themselves don't want their games living on somebody else's native hard drive. Our drive is secured, so they're much safer for them as well. And then there's another factor. Our system is operating on Linux, right? So not everyone's running a Linux box at home. We wouldn't force them to install Linux to run. Inside of a container makes it slow. It adds latency, which we're trying to avoid. So Linux, being obviously not as bloated as Windows, makes for a nice faster system. So those are the general reasons why to do the external hard drive. As long as it's plug and play, which is what this device will be, it makes it very easy for people to come in and use it.
Got it. So you plug the hard drive directly into your machine. It uses the regular Ethernet port, or is the Ethernet going into that little machine?
You're the only thing you have to plug in is the external hard drive, the Nano. Everything else stays the same. Yeah. Oh, and he's holding up his.
Oh, it's pretty slick.
Yeah. It's
it looks like a Nano.
Yeah. It's a credit card size, slightly smaller than credit card, and
So
it's
it's
quite cool.
nice.
It is magnetic as well. So
so it's so it's just it's
a
a different boot drive, right? So you boot up under one, or you boot up under your native one, or you boot up under the on this one, and then from an app on your phone, you designate. All right, so I want my computer back at 8 a.m. So at 6 a.m. stop taking new work, and it'll start to wind down. So it's back in your control, and you can reboot in your native drive once you're ready, right?
Is there a notification system for like the gamer? Let's say, I'm playing Cyberpunk and I'm at an important part. Is there going to be like, hey, you got like an hour left until this machine, you got to take over a different machine, or does it just sort of like?
I don't know. Then I have to go check with our CTO and find out if that's in his backlog or not. I'd assume it is, but I'm not going to say for sure.
I thought Andy was literally going to get us the answer.
My dog was barking outside. I was like, he's going to keep going. I'm like, that would be sorry.
Goes.
Yeah.
The second I see like an Amazon truck coming down the driveway, I'm like, oh no, this is an important call.
I close my blinds so my dog doesn't do that because she goes nuts over Amazon.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, the dog software hasn't quite been updated for the modern world. They're good protectors, but there's a lot of things that we don't need protection from. Guys, so we got like 10 minutes left. So I'll turn it over to you guys for a second to be like, okay, what aspects of Yom have we not gotten a chance to dive into that you think the audience should know about?
Well, I mean, we can talk about the TG that's coming up, right? But we're really focused on the hardware and the network actually operating and being robust. Like that's our main driver. We have to get the token out there in order to be able to pay the node operators. So we have to have the minting event. But the minting event is not it's not time for anything except for we want to get stand up mainnet, and we're about ready to be able to stand up mainnet. So now we need the token out and circulating. So that's coming up. We're targeted the end of September for this event, and before that. Even still, we're getting the hardware shipped out. The first 300 or so are going to be made in production and getting ready to be sold and then operated, so that we can have a robust network out there and people can start earning with it. So I think that's the other big thing that's coming up for us schedule wise. Gamescom coming up next week, Andy, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a bit of an interesting one. So we're going with our two BD guys. Both of them are 20 years in the space. I think John was fun. We had him on our AMA a couple of weeks ago, and he was helping a mate move. And we said, tell us a bit about you. And he's the guy who found Hitman, and actually is the guy that decided on the barcode on the back of Hitman's neck. And we were like, wow, that's so cool. And he goes, I'm actually moving house for the EP of Hitman. And we're like, get him on. So the guy who designed Hitman came on, And, we're all like little kids again, going, "This is just bloody brilliant," And he's he's a really nice guy as well. But anyway, the point is we're going to Gamescom, so Gamescom is going to be back to back. And what we found is, look, we joined Neo Tokyo. I can't remember, January 24, and I'd been following it for a long time prior to that, and we'd had conversations with NT. Loved the project, thought it's all great, and Web3 is where our heart is, and it's we actually have a functional business that uses Web3 for the right things it should be used for, as opposed to just we're going to launch a meme token, and nothing wrong with meme tokens. We're going to launch one, and then we're not going to have any tech that goes with it. We'll be vaporware. We're very much the tech, and the token is the firepower and the engine and the gas that makes it all work. But what we notice is when we go to the Web 2 space, we're getting tons of traction in the Web 2, to the point where we're actually, I think we're one of 10 gaming tech businesses going on the stage at Gamescom on Thursday. And actually, out of those ones, I was with them all today for a dress rehearsal. We are the only Web3 one in the whole thing. So we're like one of 200 Web 2 and Web 3. And I think this is where it gets really interesting, because we don't want to be perceived as, oh, it's a Web3 game or a Web3 gaming tech. We want to be perceived as gaming tech in our own right. And the fact that we use Web3 is it's a bonus. That's what it is. And this is where it's really going for these Gamescom kind of meetings. And that traction's just pretty exciting. I was just going to say as well on the TGE, I was reading today that obviously everyone's talking about altcoins booming, so it feels like, we are gaming infrastructure, Jeff, I don't know, did you talk about the patents that we've got at all?
I didn't talk about the patents. No, actually, go ahead.
Okay. So we've got 3 patents that we're running, which is basically the orchestration system. So it's the session orchestrator and the game orchestrator. So there's 2 patents on those. There's another one that's been designed as well. So the patents are in. We've got 12 months for them to be signed off and ticked, etc., which we think they will be because we've done all the research, etc. But the interesting bit is that we think that actually now is going to be the right time to basically push this and basically get the TGE done, and then go into next year as a gaming project, which actually has AI, real AI, rather than APIs from ChatGPT. And then so I don't want to sound negative on anyone else's project, by the way, so please don't take that as a negative, but it's really cool. I'm really quite excited,
and it's really true. I mean, we could call a spade. There's a lot of GPT plugins or Grok plugins that are revolutionary new AI tech. I'm like, you're right, it is revolutionary new AI tech built by XAI and OpenAI. But there's always going to be a lot of piggybacking. I mean, I cut my teeth in the 2021 original metaverse wave. So, there's people with a pitch deck and a convincing salesman who, convinced, let's be honest, me, that they are going to be able to.
And me, mate. I bought in as well. We won't mention any.
MMORPG in 6 months, that's achievable. Generational wealth, here I come. But no, it's really, validating to have been around this space after that sort of blow off top, and now actually, it feels like a big forest fire had ripped through and burned out a lot of this sort of like dead wood. And now you're really starting to see both on the tech side what you guys are doing on the cloud gaming, as well as I was just talking to an interesting project working with interactions with streamers. So being able to do sort of a cloud gaming niche, which is actually being able to join onto a streamer's game using their system to spin up and then have multiplayer between the two, and actually has a cool little bidding system as well. And then there's actual cool tech coming out from the games. You got Off the Grid, you've got Reaper Actual coming, which is being built by another gaming legend. So it really seems like this might be just me on my last fumes of hopium, but it seems like there's some really good stuff coming down the pipe.
Yeah,
mate, I was going to say though, I think you're right. I think that we had this kind of vaporware that came out, and there's vaporware in other areas, but gaming feels a little bit like, and the metaverses and immersive experiences, it feels like now the projects that are really in. It's people are a little bit more we're a little bit more savvy, a little bit more kind of brutal on these things, which means that, I mean, again, it for us, it's been a slog. You know, you have to go out. And I think if we'd have been raising, you know, and going out in 2021, we'd have had, you know, a bit of FTX thing where I could have, well, we could have got Jorrit basically playing his computer games while people throw money through the window at him, you know. But again, it just makes you more, it makes you more, you got to produce better equipment. You've got to do better things. You've got to be slicker. You've got to be more on the point, I think, you know, in this market anyway.
No doubt about it. Well, gentlemen, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I was going to say watch Q4, late Q3, early Q4, TGE, nodes, altcoin pumping like crazy, NT, you know, Citizen 2's going to $50,000, you know. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
You'll win
Yeah.
some fans there.
Yeah.
I guess my encouragement is to join our, you know, if you can join our socials, that's great. I think signing up for the newsletter so you get an update directly to you about what we're doing. I think that's even better. And then shoot, there was another piece I was gonna add to that. Andy talked about the YouTube, the interview we did with John and the guy from Hitman showing up. It's funny because I did geek out too because I was a big Hitman fan too. So when he shows up, I feel like I'm in. And I always thought when I got into gaming way back in the day, I thought, oh, I'll be making video games. My kids are going to think I'm some kind of rock star. And you know, I think that I forget who it was. Maybe it was Eddie Van Halen. One of those guys was just like, you know what? My kids think I'm a geek because you know, and it's true. My kids just they don't even building video games. Yeah, I know that's cool. Like all their friends are like, wow, your dad makes video games. And like, no, my dad makes really bad dad jokes. You know, and on the side he makes video games. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Well, gentlemen, another great conversation. Always happy to chop it up with you guys. Big thank you as well to the audience for joining us today. This has been Neo Tokyo's official podcast, Interlinked. We'll be back with another episode next week.